James West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, I had just left the party and, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I heard that, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
What's up, kiddos? It's me, Clinton Yates from the Washington Post, filling in here on a Friday. It's August 21st, 2015. Glad to be here. Got the Seafoam Green going this morning for those of you tuned in on Free Speech and on TawkrTV. Short sleeve NASA shirt style. That's tough to say.
Very nice.
Almost botched that one.
Very nice. You got it, though.
Could have been a problem right off the top. Anyway, if you want to tweet us at the show, it's at BP Show. If you want to give us a phone call, it is 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Filling in for Bill here. Of course, that's Peter Ogburn.
Clinton.
Am I right? How are you?
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I like
to
the
you,
Seafoam.
Thank you. It's
good stuff.
It's quality. It's in.
Yeah.
This season.
Short sleeve button up.
Yo,
I'm with you.
It means I'm smart.
Yeah.
Across the glass, we of course have Jamie Benson running the board. What's up, Jamie?
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
There's a long personal story about this that you will not hear, but I'm glad to see that man in the position that he's in.
I owe my life to Clinton Yates.
That's not true, but thank you very much, Jamie.
He's done a great job all week.
Yes, let's hope that continues throughout the day. No, it's been
Fingers
awesome
crossed.
so
Fingers
far.
crossed.
If you give us a phone call, Ray Rogers will be answering the calls for you, and of course, Cyprian Bolding is making us all look good. He's a comedian, but that's the story for later. So, yesterday was National Radio Day, so I'm going to take some time to tell a little story. I got into radio because when I was a kid, my parents got divorced when I was a small kid, and at night, you're sort of sitting by yourself in your bed, and you don't really have anything to do. So I would listen to sports talk radio probably, well more than I should have. Deep into the night. And the first radio personality that I ever truly got drawn to was this guy, Arnie Spanier, who went as the Stinking Genius. He had some show on the West Coast that he was one of these blowhard sports talk guys. He's probably still on somewhere.
Sure, yeah.
But the point
they never die.
These guys, it's like cockroaches.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully, I'll be one of them. But, it was then that I got attached to radio as a medium. So, for all of you all who are tuned in and are listening, various stations across the nation, I've always felt that, in all the mediums and all the media that we've gotten in this world now, we've got Twitter, we've got social media, we've got the YouTubes, we've got a lot of different things. But to me, radio is always still the most intimate medium. There's nothing that's going to replace when you don't really have anybody else there and you're listening to someone share their life or share their experience with you. So on National Radio Day, or the day after National Radio Day, I just want to say thanks because it's been a great pleasure to have any type of a career in this business. And everybody works hard to get where they are. And, I'm happy. So
you hit the nail on the head. That's why I'm in this
is.
business, man. The personal, intimate connection that you have with radio.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it is and will always be my favorite medium.
I tend to agree. We got a lot to get to in the show, including America's favorite game. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news out there. Clinton, it's hot out there. I'll tell you how hot it is.
How hot is it,
I was
Peter?
waiting for it, Clinton.
I was drinking coffee. I know. How hot is it, Peter?
I'll tell you how hot it is, Clinton. NOAA just put out their latest findings on how hot it was in July and found out that July saw the highest average temperatures since record-keeping began. Wow. It was the hottest month ever last month. Not just here in America, globally.
That's frightening.
As a planet, it was the hottest month ever. So
Baghdad had all those crazy temperatures. I remember the Middle East, people were jumping in the sewers. It was so hot.
It was insane.
That's a little scary. But, at Reagan National, apparently the, what are they called? The thermometers, the things were tweaked too high. So even though it was the hottest, it wasn't as hot as some people thought it was here.
Oh, wow.
Locally in D.C.
All right. Well, there you go. Any guesses on who the highest paid actress is? We just did a couple days ago the highest paid actor. Highest paid actress. Any guesses, Clinton, Jamie?
Meryl Streep.
Scarlett Johansson.
Ooh, very close, very close. She is number 2.
ScarJo?
ScarJo is number 2.
ScarJo's number 2.
Meryl Streep is not. Oh no, I'm sorry. She's at looks like number 10.
Okay. Who is it?
Number 1 is Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, of
Jennifer
course.
Lawrence.
Right. How did
that Hunger Games moolah.
I see every movie
Games.
she's in.
Yeah,
I
right?
should have known.
She pulled in $52 million. ScarJo, number 2, 35.5. Number 3, Melissa McCarthy.
Really?
Pulling in big money, $23 million.
I saw a picture of J-Law's house the other day.
I can't even.
Monster mansion.
I'm sure.
Like, she's not on some, oh yeah, I've got a condo. No, dog. She's like majorly balling.
Yeah, good.
Majorly.
Yeah.
Good for her. No,
Yeah.
it's great.
I love the story. She's doing this movie with Chris Pratt, right? Arguably one of the biggest film stars today.
Right.
And she's getting paid more than him.
Good.
I love.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Chris Pratt,
very happy.
Another one of these superhero white guys that I couldn't pick out of a lineup because they. The same. Yeah, but that's good for her. I'm really excited for the Hunger Games finale.
Yeah.
That should be good.
I think that's it, right? Isn't that it? That's all 3
All
stories?
right. Well, there we go. That's done.
That outro.
Didn't take long. All right. So, in more serious matters, let's talk about what our friend Jeb Bush is up to. Look, yesterday, was it yesterday? Or was it the day before?
It was the day before that he said it.
The day before that he said this. But he came out and he was talking about immigration policies in this country. And for those of you who don't know, Donald Trump wants to get rid of birthright citizenship. Now, we can talk about this as a separate matter first, but in that discussion, Jeb Bush found himself using a term that, if for nothing else, is completely sort of out of fashion as something to talk about. And he said that he wants to find a way to prevent the U.S. from dealing with what he called anchor babies. Now, anchor baby is a term which, again, I find offensive. You might find offensive. I don't know. Want to give us a call, 866-55-PRESS. I want to know what you think about that phone call. But Peter,
all right, so
tell me something about it.
I did a little. I threw a goog on anchor babies.
Okay.
Right, because I was going to look and find some news stories on anchor babies. But the first thing that popped up, thanks to Google, is they have the definition.
All right.
Right? As they do.
This is from the
Google
Goog.
is so very helpful.
Right.
Anchor baby, noun, offensive. All right? Right off the bat.
First word. All right.
Right off the bat. Used to refer to a child born to a non-citizen mother in a country which has birthright citizenship, especially when viewed as providing an advantage to family members seeking to secure citizenship or legal residency. Used to refer.
Right.
Because it's outdated and offensive.
It's outdated and offensive. Now, to get to the matter, the first matter, which is that, eliminating birthright citizenship, that is a very drastic immigration policy.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point of, what's written over on Ellis Island, bring us your, like, if you're going to do that, if you're Donald Trump, I mean, you're really making a stance on the xenophobic fears that people have about what should and should not be considered quote unquote American, that to me doesn't fly. There's a lot of things that the Donald says, there's a lot of things that a lot of people believe in, but this is one that I just don't understand where you go from there. Like what kind of slippery slope is that? Are you going to then start? I just don't understand how you enforce that, where this goes from there, if that really becomes a part of American law. That's just really difficult to me. I mean, Peter, what do you think about that notion of eliminating birthright citizenship?
The Donald Trump thing is fascinating to me because I get it. It's funny to talk about. It's entertaining for people like us who follow this stuff. But we're now veering into this territory where Donald Trump is going to have to put up some facts.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to put out some policy. And that's a little scary for a lot of people because he's a little short on those. He was on Meet the Press and he was talking about immigration. He was saying they got to get out of the country. We either have a country or we don't have a country, which if you think about that statement is so xenophobic.
It's completely.
And he's saying, we're going to send them all back. But he's compassionate in the sense that he says, well, we're not going to separate the children from their parents.
Sounds like something else I've heard before, which is frightening. And look, whatever you may think about Bush or Trump separately, the notion of ending birthright citizenship, quite frankly, is crazy.
Yeah.
Like there's no way this country moves away from that, because that is that is sort of beyond what is written in whatever constitution or whatever documents. The concept is, if you were born here, you get to stay here, is a psychological tenet of why we do what we do. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Do you think anchor babies is an offensive term? And what do you think about ending birthright citizenship? I don't know. To me, there's no way anybody wins an elected, anybody gets to the White House with that as any sort of policy.
Let's start with the fact that it's not a very compassionate policy.
Right.
Right. Like it just sucks. But as you just hit on, it's not a winning issue. It's not something that a lot of the country is running around wanting to see people get rid of. And the thing that's really interesting to me is Jeb Bush was going to be the guy who gets it on immigration. Jeb Bush was going to be the guy.
He's got his own story, his wife, and all this other stuff.
He was going to be the guy who was going to deliver the Republicans from all of this nonsense flying around, xenophobic crap flying around, and he's out here referring to these children as anchor babies. And then when he gets called for it, does the shrug the shoulders. Oh, well,
what do you want me to do?
What else am I supposed to call?
Give me something else, which is the height of the privilege. That's the male privilege, white privilege stance right there.
Yeah.
Whatever. Come at me, bro. Tell me something else. And you're like, come on, man. How do you not know? It's 2015. It's not like this is 1985. You know what I'm saying? And I just, it's kind of unbelievable to me how far afield. It's like some issues right on the head. Other issues, you realize, wow, you really did just come out of that GOP desert, where nobody seems to know what's going on with the rest of the country except for a few people here and there. Anyway, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Give us a phone call. When we get back, we will talk about the concept of anchor babies. I want to know what you think about that, and I want to know what you think about ending birthright citizenship. I'm Clinton Yates. I write for The Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill. It's Friday.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, the Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit everything.
Yeah, a little
it's
bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
Our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So it's like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me. Help me. Shoot your hands. Help me. Shoot your hands. Back
here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean, a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Okay. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Well, welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill Press here on a Friday. We were talking about immigration and the discussion surrounding what to do concerning undocumented immigrants and the like. Of course, Jeb Bush and Donald Trump, who are both running for the GOP nomination, have been discussing a little term that is a tad outdated. What's that term, Peter?
Anchor baby.
Exactly. So give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Do you think this term is offensive? And also, I want to know what you think about Donald Trump's plan to end birthright citizenship in the United States of America, one of the pillars of what our society is. But Peter, first, you have a comment.
Follow the show on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. You can chime in at any time with any comment that you have. A couple of quick comments from Phil. He says, Jeb, remember you got to put that exclamation point.
Yes, you have to put the exclamation.
Jeb is turning into 2016 version of Rick Perry. Lots of promise and hype, but turning out to be a very bad candidate. And Jessica says, my husband was a, quote, anchor baby. He grew up to serve his country for 20 years and in 2 wars, completely useless.
Right. I mean, and that's really what the point comes down to. As if people are, as if somehow the notion of opportunity is something that you can simply pick up and take with you and walk around the globe. I mean, the point here is that people want to live. People want to have an opportunity to live healthier lives. That's why trying to exist in a nation in which people have chances is something people want to do, not because they're trying to steal something that they don't deserve in the lifetime, spectrum of who has a shot to, have a decent upbringing. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Chandler in Palm Springs. I guess it's morning there too?
Yes, it is.
How are you? My
goodness. 3-something in the morning. Clinton and Peter, who exactly is we? Who's we, Mr. Trump? I mean, Mr. Trump says, we'll send them all away, and no, we'll bring back the smart and the talented. Sounds like the final solution to me. That's deja vu all over again, Clinton.
Yeah, thank you for your phone call. And that's really what it comes down to. This notion of separating certain people from others is, again, problematic at the core. This is not what we do here. And by we, I mean humans. I don't just mean Americans of a certain whatever. I'm talking about decent human beings who understand that in order for humanity to survive, you're not just throwing people away based on random political philosophies.
Look at all the different Republican candidates, right? They all have some version of what Trump is now selling on his hat.
Mm-hmm.
Make America great again. Take our country back. Return to greatness in this country. They all have some form of that, right?
Yeah.
That we have somehow need to get back to some great idea of what we used to be.
And it's rooted in some terrible notions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Robert in South Carolina, good morning.
Hey, good morning. I think if they deny birthright citizenship, it might lead to denying citizenship to people with physical or mental disabilities, or maybe even who their parents voted for.
Thank you for the phone call. I mean, and that's an interesting thing, too, is that once you go down the path, that's actually a really good point, which is that once you go down the path of deciding who and who is not allowed, so to speak, to be an American, you've opened up a door to something that is really scary. You know, and that was a really good point. And I think that's the whole point of birthright citizenship to begin with, is that you're not just randomly deciding who is worthy of the blue-blooded American passport or whatever and who is not. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why it exists, which is that if you are here, you are here. That is simply what it's there for. 866-55-PRESS, 866-55-77377. How much do you think this is going to hurt Jeb overall in terms of the next debate and the discussion points?
I think that Jeb will be okay in the Republican primary. If he does go on to become the nominee, this is going to come back to hurt him.
Yeah,
for sure. I think that what we're seeing in this Republican primary is all of the stereotypes that people like to say that Democrats accuse Republican of having are kind of coming true.
It's very true.
You know, I mean, this war on women business, this xenophobia when you look at Trump.
The illegals.
Yeah, right.
You know,
this type of stuff, this type of language. And you should point out, Trump has only seen his numbers go up. He was the biggest jump in this most recent CNN poll in the Republican candidates. He jumped like 6 points. And this is after the debate where he said some pretty terrible things about Megyn Kelly afterwards, and talked about this immigration stuff.
It's not good.
It's not good at all.
It's not a good situation for the GOP. All right, I'm Clinton. Peter's here. Jamie's here. Ray's here. Sip's here. Bill's not here. More people will be here when we get back. Hopefully, you will be too.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. I want to thank you all for listening. Talking about Jeb Bush, Donald Trump, and immigration policies. I want to get your thoughts. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. What do you think about that term, anchor babies? Do you find it offensive? And I also want to know what you think about the concept of birthright citizenship. Donald Trump says he'd be willing to get rid of it, something I think is actually completely asinine. Anyway, looking forward to more of your thoughts. I want to read here from this story on Politico. Headline says, Jeb Bush, anchor babies is not an offensive term. And I just want to read the quote that he said on Bill Bennett's radio show a couple days ago. This is from Jeb Bush. He says, quote, if there's abuse, if people are bringing pregnant women, he said, if people are bringing pregnant women are coming in to have babies simply because they can do it, then there ought to be greater enforcement. That's the legitimate side of this. Better enforcement so that you don't have these, anchor babies, as they're described, coming into this country. Now, to be fair, he did say as they're described. I'll give him that. But at the same time, that notion is nuts. I want to get to some audio here from
people are described in a lot of inappropriate ways. I'm not going to say
that doesn't make it. That doesn't make it okay to do. First off, I want to get this audio here. This is Tom Lamas in New Hampshire arguing with Trump over that term.
That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct and yet everybody uses it?
Look it up in the dictionary. It's offensive.
I'll use the word anchor baby. Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
That's Trump doubling down hard on what he will and will not say. And here's Bush having a similar argument.
Governor, is that not bombastic language, anchor baby? Is that not bombastic language?
It isn't. Give me another word.
Children born of undocumented immigrants in the U.S.
That's like a 7. That's not another word. That's a 7. Look, here's the deal. What I said was it's commonly referred to that. That's what I said. I didn't use it as my own language.
He's starting to sound like his brother.
No, right.
Big time.
That's like a what? That's like a 7. That's a phrase, not a word. Stop trying to confuse me. That's anyway. We shouldn't laugh at that, but that is quite funny.
No, that was
really bad.
terrible spin.
That was really bad.
Well, that's not a word. That's like 7 words.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's also inoffensive. 866-55-PRESS. 866-557-7377. John in Washington. Good morning.
Good morning, Clinton. Good morning, Peter. Yeah, it's weird when you watch Jeb Bush. He does some of the same arm movements, sweeping wide arm movements that his brother did. It's like George W. Bush makes his brother Jeb look like George looks like a master politician. Anyway, I was reading a story over on Gawker where these two guys in Boston beat up this Latino man. He was homeless. And I don't know if he was undocumented. I don't care. They urinated on him. They kicked him. They tried to kill him. They tried to cave his head in. And when Donald Trump was asked about this, and this was his moment to stand up and say, you know what, I'm not for violence. I mean, we have to do this by the law. No, but what did he say? Oh, these two guys were just trying to make America a better place.
Yeah. Thank you for the call, John. What he said was these two are very passionate individuals, which was almost scarier on some level. And you got to think that, and listen, I don't know how much stock I put in the notion that there are freedom fighters out there trying to take America back through Donald Trump and simply beating people up on the streets. But that story is frightening. And I think, I want to thank him for that phone call because it brings up the point that there are people that are willing to do crazy things. And if you find yourself irresponsibly simply stoking fires, you can come up with a scenario that involves a very dangerous level of activity on these streets. Because, listen, a lot of undocumented immigrants are in positions of literally zero power. All right? It is worse than a lot of the I don't even know what to say, but I mean, a lot of the entrenched sort of racism and power structures that keep people down in this country, those exist on one level. For undocumented immigrants who can't go to the police for anything, can barely even have bank accounts, never mind having to hold any accountability for people, perpetrating crimes against them, it's almost a level of subhumanism because of the way we treat people. And that, to me, is as frightening as anything else. Listen, I'm not implying that every single person that comes here or is here, for that matter, no matter how they might have gotten here through birth or otherwise, is always trying to do the right thing. Obviously, that's not the case. But to simply single people out and imply that if they are not here through means that we have determined are necessary, that somehow they're creating a problem, that doesn't make sense. It is a major screw up in terms of the human resources, the overall human capital that could possibly, unlock some actual ability in this country. Just doesn't make sense. 866-55-PRESS. Susie, how are you this morning?
Not bad if you don't look too close.
All right.
Same. I hear you.
What you got?
Well, I just have a hard time at my age to look at an illegal act by coming into this country. Not like they did in Ellis Island where you had papers or you didn't have papers, but, you were checked. I was in a position not too many years ago where I had to rent a 26-foot trailer in the middle of what I would call Little Mexico. In the front was a restaurant, and they would kill their livestock out there, and you'd see the water and the soap, and then that's how they would make their money. Outside of the fact that I don't understand how an illegal act of coming into this country is all of a sudden legal. I swear to God, if I saw one more Mexican pregnant woman go into a WIC office, I was going to strangle myself. I do not live in an affluent county. I live 265 miles from the Oregon border and 265 miles from San Francisco. I am in the Redwood Curtain. I am not necessarily all real mainstream, but I'm not stupid either.
Thank you for the phone call, Susie. She brings up an interesting point, which is that if you do not have basic enforcement of laws, are we then anarchists? That's what I took from that phone call. I look at it a little differently. I look at it like this. There's a lot of things that we need to try to do in this country. There's a lot of things that some people don't think that they should be doing. They're not, it's not something that they want to partake in. And again, this gets back to the human capital point. If we can find a way to teach, if we can find a way to protect, and if we can find a way to, for lack of a better term, love the humans that are willing to risk their lives to come to this country, then I think that as a nation and as a populace, we are better off. And that might sound a little bleeding heart, but that's really what it comes down to. You cannot accomplish the goals of this nation if you do not have the humans to do it. And if there are people who are willingly trying to be a part of a better society, it makes sense to think twice about whether or not you want to kick them out first. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Kyle, good morning.
Oh, yeah, I want to talk about that. I think this is, all his support comes from those people who fear losing their lily white rule. As long as you don't threaten a lily white rule, you wouldn't have any problems. If they just put in that law that says if a company hires somebody without proper documentation, they fine them $100,000. They want to find a way to keep illegal immigration coming in so they can hang on to their cheap labor, and they don't want to allow them the right to vote because they want to hang on to lily white rule.
Yeah.
Simple as that. It doesn't get any more complicated.
Thank you very much for the phone call. I mean, that's an interesting point, which is that if you allow people to be legal, then suddenly that gap between all those guys sitting up in the ivory tower and all those guys down there in those migrant working fields, it lessens. You actually have to provide not just money, not just citizenship, but the ever-fleeting thing in this nation that is never defined. It's something we like to call, in my household, dignity, is very difficult to find. And so that's where a lot of this really comes in. Do you believe that a person that got here by means that were not either through birth or through papers, so to, as the one caller used, do you think you deserve dignity? I happen to believe that every human being deserves dignity. Whether or not you do, I don't know. What do you think, Peter?
I can't get enough of this topic because it really shows the character of people running for office, right? Or people who are voters, for that matter, people calling in and people who speak with their vote. I think you hit the nail on the head. Again, it's a matter of who we are as a country, right? One of the greatest American stories, or all of the greatest American stories that are told, a lot of them, are the ones that talk about people whose family came here, built up a life for themselves, children built a family, that family went on to go create wonderful, great things. Some of the greatest things that this country has ever produced came from immigrants, right?
Yeah.
And this notion that, like, just because you see a brown-skinned woman walking around pregnant, that somehow she was shipped here to have the baby, to stay here. Like, what? Really, guys? Like, that's really what you're going to push? There's some cottage industry for shipping pregnant women to the United States so that they can stay here with their families. It's called living your life.
Yeah.
It's what I do. It's what everybody. It's what you do. We live our lives here. We build a stake in this world right here in America. We should support that.
It's exactly true. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. This country was founded on the notion of people coming here and booting out people that were already here to create their own lives. If you're scared that other people are going to do the same to you, maybe you should think about why you are here in the first place. That's really all there is to it. I mean, it's a nation.
Yeah.
You welcome people or you don't. And the notion of kicking people out just because they don't look like you, that never, ever ends well. I'm Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press. We'll be back.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press here on a Friday. So, there's this little website, Peter, called Ashley Madison.
Oh, yes.
Based out of Toronto, I believe. Of course, Ashley Madison is a little site for adulterers, where if you're looking for a fling, if you will, you can just go on there and sign right up and see who's available. It's sort of like how do I say this? Sort of like pre-Tinder, if you will.
Tinder.
It's not exactly as attached to your phone, and they got hacked.
Yep.
And had a big leak. All sorts of people. Sidebar, there's a small part of me that thinks this is a publicity stunt by Ashley Madison, but we'll get to that later.
It's not a bad point.
But government emails coming out, people signing up with their government addresses, presumably so that they can't be traced to their actual personal accounts that are back home.
Brilliant, by the way. Kudos.
You're really smart.
If you did one of those.
Really smart.
Great job.
But... Josh Duggar fame came out. He had to say, I've been the biggest hypocrite ever. I mean, there have been some serious sort of fallout to this story. What do you think about what's happened with Ashley Madison and all of the denouement, if you will?
I think this is a huge story. And I know a lot of people are treating it like sort of a punchline.
For the titillation, if you will?
Yeah, like, oh, this is a naughty story. Mm-hmm. Oh, isn't this kind of funny that these cheaters are now being exposed? This story really, really bothers me for a lot of different reasons. Number one, I'm sort of across the board, right? Personal life stuff. Mm-hmm. Unless you're one of these guys like Josh Duggar who runs around yelling and judging everybody else, I don't really care what you do in your personal life.
Right.
But the bigger issue here is, let's say you didn't have an account at ashleymadison.com. You do have an account with Facebook or, food delivery services.
Yahoo Fantasy Sports.
Fantasy Sports, huge.
Yeah.
iTunes,
Right.
Right? So it's this whole thing in this online world. And I just saw this story from Gizmodo. Spotify's new privacy policy is atrocious. So if you use Spotify on your phone or on your iPad or your mobile device, they have a new privacy policy that you have to agree to use it. It gives them authority to go through your contacts, photos, media files, track your location, follow your movements on Facebook, and storing and sometimes even sharing your credit card information.
Too much.
It's too much information out there. And so you can say, oh, these people are stupid for going on AshleyMadison.com and they're cheaters and they should be exposed. Okay, fine. You can have that thought. But just the tip of the iceberg out
More
there.
importantly,
More importantly, there's bigger stuff out there that could really burn you.
Right. So the point there you're connecting is, let's just say you consider Ashley Madison any other service you would use online, taking out of it the judgment of whether or not one should be philandering.
Right.
The point here is that these hacks are getting closer and closer and closer to the average American consumer.
Bingo.
And that is really, really scary. If some guy wants to bust into my account through Seamless, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, that ain't good.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's where I get a little nervous. I'm not one of these guys. I'm pretty chill about privacy stuff because I'm like, whatever, man. You know what I'm saying? As long as you don't steal my money,
I'm the same way.
I don't really care what you know. But, you've got Venmo and all these sites out here that are pretty popular to use. If somebody, listen, I work hard, I make a salary, but I'm not living life to the point where if somebody bangs out my bank account once, I'm not totally effed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, exactly.
Like, I'm not ready for that. And I think that's a good point. That's a thing to look at in this, is the actual breach, not just the sort of newsreel highlight of.
It's cute, it's funny, it makes for a good headline. Look at these people and how unhappy they are and to go fool around on their spouse, right? But you really got to look at the story.
Yeah.
You really got to look at the story because that's a big deal.
Jamie, you're a little younger than we are. How much do you trust sort of those third-party apps where you just got to agree to something and you just move on? Are you on the more reticent side, or is that because of your age just something that it's like whatever, it's what I got to do anyway?
I mean, it started as a whatever thing, and then you hear more and more of these stories, and I pay attention to the news. So the worry starts creeping. You know, like I deleted Seamless and Eat24 mainly for financial purposes to save money, but also because I don't want that stuff stored all the time. Especially with Seamless, like they just went through a site transfer and it did not go well.
Right.
So
they hooked up with what is that? What is the other food delivery service?
Grubhub.
Yeah, Grubhub.
Grubhub.
So
they merged. Yeah.
They merged, and so all this crazy stuff happened. But you're right. I mean, there's things to worry about, and who's hooking up with who is not one of them. But who's looking at your bank account and who's looking onto all your personal information?
That's the issue.
Is probably a bigger one. That's the issue. All right. Well, that's that. Ashley Madison. We'll see.
Be a little more careful out there. Seriously, I've woken up a little bit about this stuff. Be a little more careful.
It's scary, and I just updated. You're right. I mean, I don't want my information out there necessarily if it's going to cost me money.
Right.
I don't care about people knowing what I did.
It's convenient.
It's convenient.
Like it hurts.
When we get back, there'll be more of me and you, hopefully.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water. Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
You know me personally or have seen me online know that I do a little thing called Movie Club, where me and a bunch of my bros go out to the flicks and see something and then we talk about it. This week we saw Straight Outta Compton, the biopic or biopic. What is that word? Is it biopic or biopic?
I say biopic.
I've said biopic.
I go biopic.
Oh, 50-50. All right. So I'm just going to say biopic. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, we saw that stupid movie. It was not as good as it needed to be.
Oh, man, don't tell me that.
It's pretty good, but the NWA story is one that if you know the ending to it, so to speak, it wasn't as good of a movie to watch as it could have been. Skips over all of the sort of major domestic violence stuff that Dre was involved in, left out a lot of artists that were very important to Ruthless Records. The acting was good, though. The guys that played Cube and Easy and Dre, and most notably Suge, were very good actors. But that story is too long. It was too hard to tell. It needed to be a mini-series and not 1 2.5-hour movie. They tried it. It was an important movie that needed to be made for the legacy of that group in gangster rap and hip-hop. But overall, if you're my age and you've lived to listen to hip-hop your whole life, you didn't learn anything. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24.5 years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving. And
try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies
gouge our families. My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, kiddos, it's me, Clinton Yates from the Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill here. Friday, August 21st, it's 2015. I want to thank everybody that's watching live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Of course, Free Speech is on Dish and DirecTV, and Talker's on YouTube. You can tweet us at BP Show. If you want to hit us up on the Twitter box, you give us a phone call, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Peter Ogburn's here.
Clinton, how are you, sir?
I'm well.
Good to see you, man.
You too. Jamie Benson's across the glass running the board.
Good morning, sir.
Ray Rogers is taking your phone calls should you hit us up, and Cyprian Bolding is back from FedEx Field and running the video board for us this morning. All right. I'll tell you a quick story. So last week, or earlier this week, can't remember, went to RFK Stadium to see, that was last week, to see the Red Bull rally cars. They run these little bad boys all over the track, all over the little parking lot. They've got a little course there. Did what we like to call a ride-along. Did a ride-along with Ken Block.
Okay.
Now, Ken Block is what one race enthusiast described to me as a famous lunatic. He does all sorts of crazy stunt driving all over various cities. And I was the person chosen to ride with him for a story I was writing. And I think he tried to scare me a little bit.
That stuff legit scares me.
It was frightening. I had to wear the whole fire suit and the helmet, but it was probably the coolest thing I've ever done. Nice. These bad boys get from 0 to 60 in literally 2 seconds. Now, it's not that that's that fast, and they get up to around 80 or 100 on the straightaways, but in 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Fam. This is quick. It's like the full drift around the turns. It was awesome. There was a jump. It was really cool. I encourage anybody, if you get a chance to ride in a rally car, give it a shot if you are not for the faint of heart. This was not the kind of thing that I normally do. However, I tackled it. I did no research ahead of time because I did not want to scare myself, and I'm glad, because if I'd really known how nuts Ken Block is, I probably wouldn't have gotten in the car with him, which is what a lot of my colleagues told me after I got out.
It wasn't that long ago you came in here talking about how you were in a cage at a bull riding.
That's true.
Competition. What are you doing?
I don't know. I don't know.
What the hell are you doing?
There is a small thrill seeker component in my life where I feel like if it's safe enough, I'm willing to do it. I'm not at skydiving yet.
I was going to say, I look forward to hearing your stories of base jumping.
I'm not
next time you
at
come in.
skydiving yet. So, there's a lot more to get to. But first, 3 stories this time, Peter?
Court Press.
First of all, a public apology to Mr. Benson, because I only did 2 stories last hour.
Put him on blast.
And I put him on blast. I was wrong. Let's go to Landover, Maryland, where last night the Washington football team was taking on the Detroit Lions preseason football. Good news. They won. That's
news.
not exactly the story, though. Their starting quarterback, Robert Griffin III, a.k.a.
Bob,
went out of the game because he was concussed. He took several very, very hard shots last night.
It was not a good day for Bob.
It was a very bad day for Bob. He eventually left the field with a concussion and a stinger in his shoulder. So not a great way to start your
Week
NFL
2 of the
season.
preseason,
Boy,
and the Burgundy and Gold are already in a total tailspin with pretty much everything going on. They don't know who their quarterback is going to be, and there's a lot of infighting.
Yeah, it's not good. To New York City, where Mayor Bill de Blasio floated an idea to New Yorkers that has people talking. So Times Square used to be an area that was just heavy traffic, and there was a lot of foot traffic there as well. And then a couple of years ago, they shut it down to certain areas to car traffic and turned it into a pedestrian mall almost. It's a pedestrian area, lots of areas for people to walk around. Well, it's become so overrun by people, fame seekers, and people looking to get your picture taken because they're dressed up, and also Spider-Man,
yeah,
and topless women who have painted themselves so as to not appear that they are topless. But Bill de Blasio, mayor of New York City yesterday, floated an idea of getting the pedestrian plaza, just gutting it, getting it out of there, opening it back up to traffic, because he said that they just have such a hard time regulating what's going on there in Times Square.
That's a terrible idea. Look, are you kidding me? I mean, again, adding cars never helps.
Right.
That's a bad idea. I'll say that as a non-resident of New York City. Don't do that.
Do you sort of, I mean, the cat's out of the bag, right? Or the genie's out of the bottle, right? It's going to be hard to put it back in.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't like the pedestrian areas of New York City. I think they're a little tacky, or in Times Square. I think they're a little tacky.
But that's a separate discussion from whether or not you should be putting cars back in. You know what I mean?
Right.
You go, topless women are running around. All of a sudden, that's a scourge on America. Like, come on. I thought it was supposed to be. Well, anyway, all right.
And have you ever thought about putting solar panels on the top of your house? Well, Project Sunroof is a new program from Google that will let you take a look to see whether or not your house, where you live, is compatible for solar panels, right? Because there's an issue about whether or not you're going to get enough sun where you are and how it's going to hit and affect your house.
And whether or not,
go to Project Sunroof, it'll show your house, look using Google Maps. It'll show the direction of the sun, how it hits, and whether or not you will get optimum solar power.
Peak power
on top of your house. So
that's actually pretty cool.
Isn't that a cool idea?
Yeah.
Project Sunroof.
Check it out.
Do they do that for satellite dishes as well?
They should.
They should. Absolutely should.
They
That's a good
absolutely
idea,
should.
Jake.
Good call. All right. Thank you, Peter. On the line with us right now, we have White House reporter for Buzzfeed, an awesome guy all around, Evan McMorris-Santoro. Good morning, Evan.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well, I'm good. I am topless, wearing Superman pants, in a car. So I'm Bill de Blasio's worst nightmare right now.
Are you in a car being drawn by horses, like that he's also against?
No, of course. Yeah. What other way did dare to go?
Right. Yeah. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about Bernie Sanders and his campaign. I have a question. Do you think the Black Lives Matter movement, with their interruptions of various events that he's done, have further legitimized or delegitimized his campaign in the eyes of those you've talked to on the trail?
Well, it's an interesting question. So I have my feeling about all this, about what's going on with this, is it's been a really interesting sort of dichotomy of a campaign versus its supporters. I put up a story this morning on BuzzFeed about all of Sanders' supporters and how they've reacted to this. I've gone to a lot of Sanders events, these huge rallies across the country, in Seattle, Portland, and all across the West Coast a couple weeks ago, and all around the blue states, Minneapolis and Madison and Dallas, and all these places he's been. Mm-hmm. And also online, you find that the people who support Bernie Sanders have sort of felt like they reacted kind of badly to this Black Lives Matter thing. You've seen some racist vitriol thrown at these women who come up there on these stages. You've seen this whole idea they're talking about that the entire movement is a conspiracy perpetrated by Hillary Clinton to make Bernie Sanders look bad. So this is sort of like a negative for Sanders, and I said a whole big story about it. But for the campaign itself, what you're actually seeing from Sanders and his operation is a lot of political savviness, actually. That as this sort of issue has come forward, and as he's sort of been repeatedly interrupted and repeatedly sort of criticized for some of his rhetoric by people online from Black Lives Matter, he's actually sort of reached way out and tried to embrace them and tried to listen to what they had to say and give them a message that they want to hear. And actually, I think he's done a fairly good job of it. The activists say he's done a fairly good job of it. You hear it from all over the place. You see his speeches now are all focused on Black Lives Matter. So it's funny because on the one hand, I feel like the movement has helped to make Sanders into more of a well-rounded candidate than he was when he started. But on the other hand, it's also helped expose some kind of ugliness among some of the people in his supporters that could make it harder for him to reach out and expand his base.
Why do you think the Black Lives Matter movement has magnetized itself to Bernie versus any of the other candidates on the left side?
Well, there's two very basic reasons for that, they say, in multiple interviews I've done with them. The first one is the Secret Service. The reality is Hillary Clinton has got this unbelievable security cordon around her. That everywhere she goes, she has Secret Service. I mean, she's a former senator, former First Lady, and former Secretary of State. So sort of everybody gets a piece of the security in that situation. And so the feeling is that they just can't get near her. Now, in a movement that is fueled a lot by by fear of police brutality and police violence, it makes some sense maybe to be a little trepidatious about the candidate that's like surrounded by Secret Service and armed people everywhere you go. Sanders is not like that. Sanders rallies are fairly easy to get into. The candidate's pretty accessible. He doesn't have a big security cordon around him. So that's one reason that the activists have mentioned, that just because it's accessible. But the other reason is that they feel like Sanders actually embodies a certain type of white progressivism, is the phrase that they use, that they feel just has not been very attuned to the issues of what these people are talking about. I mean, and I'm the main focus that I would say, the main issue is this idea that sort of it doesn't matter what income level you are or what class you are, that it's simply a matter of being a black person in our society, that there is hardships and there's and in the case of police, potential dangers that you just don't have. And so they don't feel like the sort of economic message that they feel like is the main focus of people like Bernie Sanders addresses that. Right. So those two reasons are why. One, you can get at him, you can talk to him, and two, they feel like he really is a person that needs to change his tune to be a bit more, a bit more of an advocate for this modern problem we have with this police violence.
We're talking with White House reporter for Buzzfeed, Evan McMorris-Santoro. You can find him on Twitter at Evan McSan. If you had to ask the Sanders campaign where they thought they were versus their goals at this point, do you think that they have exceeded, succeeded, not succeeded?
Well, that's a great question too, because this is another thing. There are basically two Bernie Sanders campaigns going on. The first one is this national campaign to create this movement of progressivism that Sanders is convinced is a nationwide 50-state movement. He thinks you can go to the Deep South and win support by talking about very strong liberal populist policies, ideas of expanding Social Security and raising the minimum wage and worker protection and things like that. On the other hand, you have to win in Iowa and New Hampshire to try to at least show that you can compete with Clinton. So on the first score, the national campaign, I'd say this is definitely well beyond anyone's expectations. He is drawing crowds that are just unbelievably big with really, really dedicated people. His online operation is the stuff of legend among the presidential field. People don't have this kind of enthusiastic response. No other candidate really does that Sanders has. So online, he's got this huge army of people. He can go to anywhere in the country and turn the key on a 35,000 person rally whenever he wants to, which is just unheard of for anyone else.
Right.
But when it comes to the other side, his poll numbers are really good. I mean, he's doing very well in New Hampshire, better than I think most people thought he was going to do. He's doing pretty well in national polling too, and he's doing decently well in Iowa. But there is some question about whether or not his operation is robust enough. His actual campaign operation is robust enough to turn this enthusiasm into votes and into caucus goers when the time comes. So I think that part of the enthusiasm that he's dealt with and the amazing outpouring of support that he's had in these initial weeks has led to a bit of a confusion, a bit of a worry that they don't have the operation that they need to turn it into votes. I actually asked Sanders about this 2 weeks ago in Oakland, California, and he said, like, look, we have a long way to go when it comes to actually winning votes in New Hampshire and Iowa, but he thinks that, the groundswell of support that he has is going to be able to, produce that kind of enthusiasm on the ground in those places.
Thank you, Evan.
Sure.
All right, man. See you tonight.
Absolutely.
All right. That's Evan McMorris-Santoro, a White House reporter for Buzzfeed. Good guy. And I'll tell a story about what I just asked him later. I'm Clinton Yates. It's the Bill Press Show.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
First name is Dez, last name Nuts.
Dez Nuts.
Dez Nuts.
Dez Nuts. Dez Nuts.
What?
Dez Nuts. Dez Nuts.
Dez Nuts.
Dez Nuts.
Dez Nuts.
Dez Nuts.
Why not? I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press here on the Bill Press Show. My favorite presidential candidate of all time is what all of those newscasters were referring to. Dez Nuts. It's an Iowa farm boy. He's 15 years old. He said, hey, mom and dad, what do you think about me signing up as a candidate? He's, of course, 20 years away from ever being able to run because of age limitations on running for president in this nation. But he has resurrected a joke from the 9 Deuce, or the 9 Tray, I guess it would be, that I'm not sure most people even necessarily knew, but that got a lot more, let's say, run. I guess it was in March when a meme came out with that guy sitting on the couch. Got him.
Melvin. Yeah.
Melvin. So, look, first of all, this guy, in my opinion, is an American hero.
Hero.
Total hero.
No other way about it.
I mean, there's just no other way to put it because it is a complete bathroom joke. But he is getting a decent amount of support in the polls.
He's polling at 9% in North Carolina against Trump and Clinton.
Now, let's imagine.
Which shows that North Carolina is a pretty cool ass state,
Exactly.
right? Like if you got
sidebar, like North Carolina, good on you.
I like that
for supporting this guy. Now, if you're a pollster and you're calling up somebody, first of all, you're calling on a landline. So I'd like to know your thoughts on Dez Nuts. Are you in support of Dez Nuts? Are you behind Dez Nuts? Is the question. I mean, just what do you? Imagine if you get that phone call. Can you imagine the amount of hang-ups happening there? They've got to be through the roof.
We were calling to see if you were interested in these CDs. Which CDs? CDs Nuts?
I mean, there is a part of me that wants this to really, really happen because the jokes will never, ever stop. And they will all proceed to be funny for the rest of my life.
What's funnier than a seasoned broadcaster having to go on air and say
the words?
There's a new candidate in the race for president, and his name is Dez Nuts.
See, saying that word with a straight face is one thing. Using Snoop's proper tonality, inflection, which, by the by, Dez Nuts, that's how you say it. Just so you know. I mean, imagine the campaign slogans.
Yeah.
Change you can believe in. Dez Nuts. Dez Nuts will make America great again. I'm sorry. The jokes are ridiculous, but come on. This is something you would say in high school to all your friends starting back in middle school. And this kid is pulling a bit on America.
It's the greatest.
I love this kid.
It's the greatest.
Dez Nuts. The greatest. When we get back, we'll talk about way more serious stuff. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this. And they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. But I'll stay radical. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
Got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earthalluia.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill here on a Friday. On the line, we have national editor for Politico magazine, Michael Hirsh. You can find him on Twitter at Michael P. Hirsh. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
I'm well. So I want to get to, before we talk about the latest news, a story of yours I read in which the headline is Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, and the Jews. Now, It talks about Carter's sort of relationship with Israel and how that correlates to what Obama has done from a foreign policy standpoint. Tell me a little bit about this story and sort of what went into reporting it and sort of how people you think now feel about Carter's relationship with Israel.
Well, I think, it's one of the great historical ironies that if you talk to many American Jews, and I hear this from my own family, they are very suspicious of Carter in recent years, particularly with his 2000 book, which was provocatively headlined Palestine, Peace or Apartheid. He's seen as an advocate for Palestinian rights, and unfortunately, some Jewish Americans take that as evidence of anti-Semitism. And of course, the irony is that no one probably did more to secure Israel's existence with the 1978 peace accord with Egypt than Jimmy Carter. It transformed the entire region. It really, if you look at what's happened in the ensuing 4 decades or so, created a situation where Israel, no longer has to fear an existential threat from an Arab nation through a traditional military attack. So I was trying to, put that in perspective in this article.
So for those who don't necessarily understand how that correlates right now to Obama and who maybe not have read the story, where do those two things connect?
Well, I was trying to analogize the Iran nuclear deal, which, again, AIPAC and many American Jews have come out against, and suggests that, in fact, it could also be, in the end, a savior for Israel, because there really isn't a good alternative. And the evidence is that many Israeli security experts themselves have come out and said that they could accept this deal. The whole idea that a military assault was a reasonable alternative by Israel is not really true, because I think the Israelis have been bluffing for some years. Even reliable Israeli experts say that the best that could do is set Iran's nuclear program back by a few years. And the whole idea that there was a better deal to be had is also sort of fantasy. And in fact, it's just not practical, because this is a deal that's been signed off on by not just the United States, but the other major world powers, the P5+6. So, the argument is that both Obama and Carter, I think, have actually done a lot to try to preserve Israel, and people should have a more realistic assessment of that.
We're talking with national editor for Politico magazine, Michael Hirsh. Now, more immediately, when you first heard Carter come out and say, "Hey, look, I've got this health issue," what were your initial thoughts on how public he was with that?
Well, Jimmy Carter has had, arguably the most impressive post-presidential career, of any modern president. He set up the Carter Center with its $600 million endowment. He's been an election monitor around the world. Helped to resolve conflicts. Went to North Korea at one point, and obviously at the age of 90, when someone announces that they've got metastatic cancer, as Carter himself said at his news conference yesterday, you figure this is pretty much the end, and it's time to start, writing your eulogy of the guy, your obituary anyway. And but then, what we discovered yesterday is that he's fighting this. That it may in fact be a type of cancer that could keep him around for a while.
It was amazing to me how he sort of looked it in the eye yesterday. You hear guys like Donald Trump run around talking about class, and he talks about class the way that people who have no class talk about class. Yeah. Jimmy Carter showed a lot of class yesterday, and I have no real connection to Carter. I know that his presidency for a lot of people have sort of been a punchline, but that was one of the most moving things I've ever seen.
It was remarkable. I was in Atlanta for that story, and for a 90-year-old guy, he looked a little stooped, but was absolutely, clear of mind, was funny. He made, he joked about his condition, about, having been around for a while and wishing he had done a few things differently. For example, ordered an extra helicopter for the failed Iran rescue mission in 1980, incredibly impressive. Showed a lot of grace, and maybe reminded a few people of why they elected him in the first place. The ones who remember back then.
Yeah, right. How are we going to remember Jimmy Carter? You hit on the post-presidency stuff, which I think he set the template for post-presidency stuff. But are we going to remember him more for that, or what are we going to remember from his actual presidency?
Well, I think most people are going to remember what they remember now, which is, he was a one-term president, defeated in a landslide by Ronald Reagan in 1980 as an incumbent, was president at a time when the country was doing badly with the energy crisis and stagflation from the Vietnam era, and it was not a happy time, which is one of the reasons he was not reelected. But as I tried to point out in the article, his legacy is much larger than that. I mean, it's not just the peace deal between Israel and Egypt. It was the move he made in 1978 to recognize China, which really helped to lead to China's reforms internally under Deng Xiaoping, transforming the U.S.-China relationship. He appointed Paul Volcker to the Federal Reserve, and Volcker was a historic figure in tamping down the inflation from that era and setting up the stage for the prosperity of the Ronald Reagan era. So, if you look broadly at his legacy, he actually did quite a lot in that one term. And some of the things he didn't do, for example, he had a major proposal for a national health care system that actually would have been more extensive than Obamacare, but was defeated particularly with the leadership of Teddy Kennedy in the Senate. It shows you what the possibilities might have been. And you can see in Carter's statements yesterday how wistful he was that he didn't get a chance at that second term.
Michael, this is the last thing I'll ask you before we get you out of here, though. But do you think, and I just want to say this, I look at this, you don't want to talk about a guy before he goes as if he's gone, but I'll refer to it more as a retirement. Do you think that his causes, without him as the public face, are necessarily going to have the same impact that they did without him working those streets and working those cameras?
No, I think that Carter was a unique presence. He has his grandson, Jason Carter, who ran for governor in Georgia, and is trying to follow in his political footsteps, is now running the Carter Center, and we expect that to continue. But no, I think once the next president leaves the scene, then it's not going to be like it was. But the Carter Center, has had a lot of impact, and it's very well endowed in terms of money, and I expect that you'll continue to hear things coming out of there.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. National editor for Politico magazine, Michael Hirsh. You can find him on Twitter at Michael P. Hirsh, and his work is online at Politico.com. My name's Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill Press. It's Friday, headed towards the weekend. Thank you for listening. We'll be back.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
What's up, kiddos? Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill Press here on a Friday. It's August. It's the district. Things are a little slow. Kids are not back. So when do your kids go back to school, Peter?
They go back next week is their last week of summer. So
next week is their last week of summer.
So
you've been seeing a lot of movies,
dude. It's been nonstop. It's killing me because Mrs. Ogburn is working different hours than she's worked in previous summers.
Okay,
and so we have the whole nanny situation. But because I work the hours that I do, I get home fairly early-ish in the afternoon, and so it's been what the kids have called Camp Dad.
Right.
A lot of Camp Dad, a lot of like laser tag adventures on a Tuesday afternoon. But we've seen just about every movie in the theater that's not rated R. Like we're seeing everything.
So since you've been going to the theaters, have you been subject to what Regal Cinemas is now doing, which is the mandatory bag checks?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen it in action yet at all.
I saw it in action. I discussed going to see Straight Outta Compton earlier. And I wasn't sure if this was because of the movie we were going to go see.
Were there long lines and no violence?
Just like,
that's Straight Outta Compton?
By the by, that headline was absurd.
One of the craziest things.
And that tweet that said, Jurassic Park, long lines, no dinosaurs.
No dinosaurs.
That was very funny as well. But I saw this in action. And, obviously because of sort of a lot of the violence that we've seen at movie theaters recently, this is ostensibly the reason why this is happening. But the side effect to this is that it puts a major damper on your snack game, on your outside snack game. And I'm not a cynic. I'm not implying that the movie industry or that Regal Cinemas don't actually want people to be safe in their theaters.
Right.
But this, if you're checking purses, which can be considered bags.
Sure, yeah.
You know
if you're checking bags, you got to check purses, right?
That gets kind of personal. And I, as one that does not eat in movie theaters, don't particularly care. But a lot of people do. What is your snack game at the movie theaters? You got two young boys. You're not buying food.
Look.
Or not bringing food. You're doing something.
Here's the deal. I'm a grown-ass man.
Yes.
So I don't really wear cargo shorts. But I do have kids. And the kids can wear cargo shorts. So I turn them into my little mules.
Wow.
They carry it. Because they're fine with the popcorn stuff, but they like the gummy the gummy worms or the gummy lifesavers. So I got a big old bag of those. And I can stuff one in one of the kids' big pockets. And then they're good.
That is brilliant.
It's pretty great. Kids are the greatest. You could use them to get away with murder.
Right.
They're the greatest. So I just make
That's
sure
what you do.
I just make sure they got the big cargo shorts on, and then they carry them in their cargo shorts. Who's going to stop a kid?
Right.
Who's going to pat down a kid?
Right. Because that's not a bag either.
Right. Exactly.
At that point.
Exactly.
But then your kids have to wear cargo shorts. Jamie, what is your smuggle method for food in the movie theater?
I don't really bring food very often. I usually have other people do it for me. Particularly, if I'm going to the movie theater,
what does that mean?
King Jamie.
You got runners? Yeah. What are you talking about?
Okay, so
people
you borrowing my kids?
Right.
I'm not bringing backpacks to movie theaters, but females sometimes bring purses to movie theaters.
Right. So the purse thing is your move.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in some cases, I have folks that make their own popcorn with seasoning and everything.
Gotcha.
And they bring it in a purse. I'm thinking ahead.
The look on Peter's face right now.
Ray's actually probably more upset at me.
Is quite funny. So, the other thing is that, so my move was always simply the old crotch move. You know what I'm saying? This is ratchet. Whatever.
Hey.
Dez Nuts is running for president, so everybody calm down. But that move, and it was always just a bag of goldfish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because to me, the idea was never, you just don't get too... what's the word? Don't get too lofty with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Don't try to bring in, a big bag, God knows what. But if
Right.
you just keep it to a simple snack.
Very simple.
That doesn't smell.
That's right.
Or doesn't have whatever.
God forbid you bring real food into a movie theater. No.
No Chipotle in the movie theater.
No,
I've seen
absolutely
this,
not.
though. I've seen this happen.
Yeah, I
though.
know. I have too.
But
that's wrong.
The other thing is that, back in the college days when you would smuggle booze into the theater, that's almost completely out of the question now. Because if you don't have a bag, there's no way you're bringing a 40 or
I used to bring PBR.
a handle. PBR.
I saw Black Swan in a movie theater. Literally, it was me and my friend. We were the only two people in the movie theater.
So you just got bombed.
And we were drinking PBR. It was one of the strangest experiences.
I'll tell you the move.
Yeah.
I perfected this move when I was in college at the University of Alabama. We would go to football games where you would get a little thirsty. And of
course,
what I would
very
do,
parched.
So parched. I would get my old soccer socks and some bootcut jeans, and I would get these plastic flasks, large plastic flasks that I could fit 7 into the soccer socks. 7 into the soccer socks all the way around.
That's a lot of booze.
Well, I would be the mule for everybody.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
This is coming from a guy that keeps a knife in his boot.
That's
so
true. Good point.
True.
Good point. But anyway, the point here is that this policy is a little bit invasive, I think, for some people.
Yeah, I don't like it.
And I don't necessarily love it. I mean, because the other thing is that, and this is the more important part of this discussion, is that, if somebody is going to shoot up a movie theater, I sort of feel like we should have things in place that happen sort of beforehand. Like, I don't like feeling patted down when I'm going to try to sort of entertain myself. It's enough to have to deal with it at the ballpark. It's enough to have to deal with it at a ball game. But when you're going to the movie theater and there's police officers right there that are searching through everything, it's kind of like, you know what? I don't know that I necessarily want to be at this theater if this is what I have to deal with all the time.
If you're the type of person, and it's no judgment if you are, that worries about this gun violence, right?
It doesn't help you.
Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, if you weren't aware of the situation, that you're in a dark room, that if someone pulled out a gun, you're in serious trouble. You're aware of it if you go through something like that.
I know. I'm not going to lie. I thought about it, and it was weird. Anyway, when we get back, we're going to talk about what the president is doing. He's probably got his own movie theater, so he doesn't have to deal with that crap.
That's right.
Goldfish, beer, he can drink whatever he wants in his own movie theater.
PBR.
Exactly. I'm Clinton Yates. We'll be back.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Would you like it by?
what do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the program. This is the part of the day where we talk about what the president does. But because the president's on vacation...
Whole lot of nothing.
Whole lot of nothing. Except he is playing golf today.
Yeah.
And the White House says that he's playing golf with Cyrus Walker, Ray Allen, and Alonzo Mourning. He's been playing a lot of golf with Alonzo Mourning.
I like this relationship. I'm not sure where it comes from. But
it's an interesting one because Alonzo Mourning, of course, played for John Thompson, Georgetown Hoyas. Ray Allen, of course, played for the UConn Huskies.
That's right.
I believe it was the 1996 Big East title in which Ray Allen hit a last-second buzzer beater against the Georgetown Hoyas to defeat Allen Iverson to win the Big East title. That was the last time I actually cried at a sporting event's result. I was 15 years old in my basement. I was very upset because Allen Iverson was my favorite basketball player of all time, and this is when I was very, very into it. I mean, that like affected me.
I believe
for
it.
like a week.
I believe that
because I never really got any real trophies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the notion that he was just a one-time, he was just a selfish player.
Yeah.
And they didn't win that. I was very, very upset about that, and I hated Ray Allen for a long time. Actually, in fact, because of that.
I still hate Ray Allen for other reasons, though. Because I'm a Spurs fan.
I hate Ray Allen.
Because I'm a Spurs fan.
Ray Allen betrayed me.
Please. The reason why I like Ray Allen, though, is because one time at the All-Star game, Ray Allen's mom was at the game, and she was wearing a Ray Allen jersey. And somebody tweeted, which I still contend is the best tweet of all time, and I've told you this before, Peter, that Ray Allen's mom is the Ray Allen of NBA moms. And I was like, you know what? I like Ray Allen again. Simple as that, because his mom is awesome. But, no, Alonzo Mourning, he'd probably be a pretty fun guy to play golf with. I mean, he's had a great story. He came back from that whole health situation. He actually got back into the league. He's a good guy. I like Alonzo.
Yeah, I do too.
Zoe's a good
I used
dude.
to have the Zoe's shoes, man.
Oh, yo. And
Those
Zoe
purple and black ones?
Zoe was a mean son of a bitch on
I
the court,
loved
too. That
Alonzo
dude
when he
would
was playing
punch you
ball.
in the
Yeah.
face
No,
if
he
you
was
really wanted to.
filthy.
All right, when we get back, America's favorite game. You keep calling for it. You keep emailing me. Keep texting me. You know what's happening. It's Travis versus Travis.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
What's up, kiddos? It's me, Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. I'm filling in for Bill Press here. It's Friday, August 21st, 2015. Listen, Peter's here, Jamie's here, Ray's here,
yes, sir.
Cyprian's here. But you keep calling. I mean, the inbox is just flooded. The spam, the tweets, my DMs, people slide into my DMs. It's just too much. But it's time for America's favorite game show.
This is Travis versus Travis. Now, here's your host, Clinton Yates.
Welcome to the program, everybody. Travis is here. Travis Waldron, of course, of Huffington Post, and Travis Hughes of SB Nation. How are you two gentlemen?
Excellent. Great.
Couldn't be better.
Fantastic.
All right. Who won last week? I forgot already.
Travis,
of course. Ding! Now you get the joke. Let's start the game. All right. So, Mr. Waldron, you will be going first. Here's the rules. Each question, we go through the Slate News quiz, the pop culture quiz. You get 1 point for getting a right answer. If you get it wrong, the opponent has the chance to steal for 2 points. But if you get the steal attempt wrong, you lose 2 points, so be judicious. You guys know how this works. Question 1 for Mr. Waldron. On Monday, the worst terror attack in the history of which nation killed 22 people visiting the popular Erewhon Shrine? A, Turkey, B, Tanzania, C, Tunisia, or D, Thailand?
Turkey.
Bruh. Incorrect, sir.
It's in Bangkok, so Thailand.
Ooh, got it! Early steal
I gotta warn you, I stayed home 2 days this week, and I watched a lot of scenes.
That was huge. Big steal.
It might be a bad.
I was busy. Travis means business. I was busy doing Travis is out for blood today.
Day for Mr. Waldron. All right, question number 2. This is an easy one. The National Labor Relations Board surprised many observers this week when it refused to support whose bid to unionize. A, college football players. B, online journalists. C, teachers at charter schools. Or D, crying Amazon employees.
I think Travis has written like 4 stories about this week.
He has.
It's college athletes.
That is correct. The federal board unanimously refused to classify the Northwestern University football team as employees, which would have opened the door to collective bargaining in collegiate sports. This is what we like to call an early hole in the business. All right, Mr. Waldron, question number 2 for you. Members of which group were able to register to vote for the first time this week? A, residents of Puerto Rico. B, undocumented immigrants in France. C, federal prisoners on parole. Or D, Saudi women.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Take a
C, federal prisoners on parole.
No!
I knew
All right.
that wasn't right.
All right, Mr. Hughes.
Can you repeat the
A, residents of Puerto Rico. B, undocumented immigrants in France. C, federal prisoners on parole. Or D, Saudi women.
You don't
Saudi women?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Hughes. This is a blowout. King Abdullah announced the change in 2011, but the upcoming municipal elections are the first Saudi elections in which women are eligible to vote. We are nearing what is known as a skunk situation on the playground. All right, question 2 from you, Mr. Hughes, with a 5-point lead.
Good Lord.
This is a blowout. For the first time in almost a decade, U.S. Army soldiers have been deployed on what mission? A, inner city peacekeeping. B, ground fighting in Afghanistan. C, guarding the Mexican border. Or D, wildfire suppression.
Wildfires.
Wow. This is just out of control. Travis is pissed.
What's the mercy rule
here? All right. The Pentagon is sending 200 troops to fight fires in the western United States where 1.1 million acres are burning. You're still in it.
It's all good.
So to speak.
It's all good.
All right, question 3 for you, Mr. Waldron. An acrimonious all-night parliamentary session was required last Friday to secure what? A repeal of martial law in Ukraine. B, Greek approval for a third bailout. C, protection for Pakistani schoolgirls. And D, a new Iraqi prime minister.
B.
Yeah. That is correct, Mr. Waldron.
On the board.
Back on the
Comeback
board.
starts now.
Well done. Just so you guys know, listeners, the idea here is not just for us to goof off. The idea is for you to learn something.
Learn a little
as
something.
well. All right, Mr. Hughes, you ready to rock?
Yep.
Jane Rosenberg is the artist behind what recent work, which more than 20 art lovers have offered to buy? A forged Warhol portrait of Coco Chanel. B, a life-size Lego townhouse. C, a courtroom sketch of Tom Brady. Or D, George Zimmerman's Confederate flag painting.
Art lovers or Patriots fans?
Why
There's
no
no
easy
overlap.
questions?
There's no overlap.
Dude,
there.
I don't write this out, man. All right.
It's Tom Brady.
Got him! Correct. Mr. Hughes is back on the board. Rosenberg apologized to Brady for the dubious likeness, which went viral last week. Sidebar, did you read that interview with her?
Yeah, it was depressing.
Vice? It was
really
depressing
depressing.
as hell. Like,
So sad.
She's just a courtroom reporter, and people are freaking out.
I was like, it really changed the tenor of the entire story for me. I was like, I'm not having fun with this anymore.
I totally agree.
I'm gonna
And she's done like a lot of like work that people know.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like,
she's
a big time
actually famous.
Yeah.
No, that was bad. All right, Mr. Waldron. A chagrined Mitch McConnell conceded this week that the
My
necessary 1/3 plus of Congress appears to have done what? A, decided to vote for the Iran deal. B, endorsed the new majority leader. C, given up on Benghazi hearings. Or D, opened Ashley Madison accounts. That's pretty fun.
It's the Iran deal.
All right, on the board. This is not completely ugly. If
We
Congress
all know
votes
they have
against,
not given up the Benghazi thing.
this is true.
No.
Yes. If Congress votes against the deal, just 34 senators would be enough to sustain an Obama veto, and 20 Democrats have already come out in favor of it. All right, next question, Mr. Hughes. An FDA committee voted 18-6 this week to approve female Viagra for sale. What is female Viagra? A, a pink pill called flibanserin. B, a testosterone patch. C, a topical cream called alprostadil. Or D, a guy doing the dishes. That's a bad joke.
I saw a headline that called it the little pink pill, so I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah, that is correct. All right, got another one. This is getting ugly.
What's the score now?
The score is now
It's like 8-2.
8-2.
We're running out of questions.
Are we mathematically eliminated? We might be, but we're gonna play this out.
We're going all the way to the end. Yeah. No, there's no turning
We don't
back.
have bumper music for nothing.
All right, yeah. Thank you. Good call, Mr. Waldron. All right, on Sunday, Donald Trump came out in favor of which policy that seems to violate the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution? If you were listening to the show earlier, you will know the answer to this question. A, literacy tests for voters. B, deporting American-born children of unauthorized immigrants. C, the death penalty for drug offenders. Or D, downgrading Heidi Klum from a 10 to a 9. He said that, by the way, earlier this week.
Did he?
You missed that, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
It's
said,
the
sadly, she's not a
it's
10 anymore.
deporting children of unauthorized immigrants.
Correct. Not to worry. The 14th Amendment is not going to hold up in court. Trump reassured voters. We discussed that at length.
That's cleared up.
Earlier this show. All right. It is currently 8-3 in favor of Mr. Hughes. Next question. What solution has the state of Idaho resorted to in order to prevent stoners from continuing to steal the state's 420 highway mile marker? A, hanging at 30 feet in the air. B, adding anti-drug slogans. C, relabeling it 419.9. Or D, switching to kilometers stateside.
Hasn't this been done before?
It has, actually.
It has.
In Colorado, they did
It's
it.
relabeling it 419.9
Which I would want to steal even more.
That is
Right?
correct. All right.
Now, do they move it? Like,
I don't know.
To 419.9 or do they
Sort
keep
of.
it
Here we
at
go. Idaho has now joined Washington and Colorado in abolishing the mile marker 420 for some reason, but those states have had similar sign theft problems. We are at 9-3. Mr. Waldron, you are going to lose, but you still have pride to play for, so
That's why I'm here.
This. Kristen Geist and Shay Haver have become the first two women to ever do what? A, win the Fields Medal in mathematics. B, join the Pro Football Hall of Fame. C, graduate Army Ranger School. Or D, swim across the Atlantic Ocean.
Ranger School.
Yeah. That is correct. Captain Greased and First Lieutenant Haver are graduating Friday, that is today, from the intensive training course in Fort Benning, Georgia.
They used to put that on ESPN. You remember that?
No.
Maybe ESPN, maybe another channel, but I think
I don't remember that.
back in
No.
the early 2000s.
I would watch the hell out of that.
It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, last question. A self-published book about a rabbit became a surprise bestseller this week since it claims to use foolproof psychological tricks to get kids to do what? A, eat their vegetables. B, fall asleep. C, hang up their effing coats for a change. Or D, wow, I don't even want to say this. Or D,
that's a bad joke.
Run away from Subway Jared. I do not endorse that joke. All right.
Eat their vegetables?
No. Incorrect. Steal for pride here.
What was
A, eat their vegetables. B, fall asleep. Or C, hang up their coats for a change.
Fall asleep.
That is correct. Mr. Waldron moves into a quadrant of respectability. The Rabbit Who Wants to Fall Asleep by Swedish psychologist Carl Johan Forsen Erlin is the first self-published book to ever top Amazon's bestseller list.
What's the final score?
9-6. That did not end up that bad at all, which of course means
It's all over. Travis wins.
All right, when we get back, we're going to talk about the real stuff that both of these guys report on. My name is Clint Yates, filling in for Bill Press Show. Travis gets a win this week, just like he does every week. We'll be back.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the program. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press here on Friday. In studio with me is Travis Waldron, a sports reporter for the Huffington Post, and NHL editor for SB Nation, Travis Hughes. Of course, they just played Travis versus Travis. Travis won. Should have been listening to the show if you wanted to know who that was. So, let's get to you, Mr. Waldron. The NLRB rejected the Northwestern University's football players' attempts to unionize as employees of the school. Give me some quick background on this in the context of this. What did they have to lose by attempting this with this attempt to unionize?
What did Northwestern players?
Yes, Northwestern players.
I don't think they had much to lose. I think it was a statement from Kane Coulter, the former quarterback, and other players that we're not being treated the way we should be. And, it would have been interesting had the NLRB approved them to see what the vote was. I think it would have been no. I think they would have rejected it ultimately. But it was kind of like I said, a statement to the NCAA, a statement to schools that, look, something's not right here. And you're seeing it from former players. You're seeing it from lawyers around the country in these lawsuits. Here's us saying it. And it forced some changes. It helped create the atmosphere that led to some changes.
Well, is this going to be the last we see of these attempts, or is there any sort of door open to not necessarily attempt to unionize, but something that moves us along the lines of a little more respect for college athletes as workers?
I think the organizing effort, a formal union effort, is probably done. The NLRB left the door cracked ever so slightly, but it's going to take some major changes to have a union petition get approved at the federal level. But I think it was only one front of the fight against the NCAA and the fight against these schools. There's multiple antitrust lawsuits going on. There's still ways that players can kind of band together informally and kind of run PR and things like that. People who are interested in creating change can run PR campaigns a lot like the way fast food workers have, even though they haven't had formal union protections. I don't think I think if anything, we're going to see more going forward. I think players are becoming more aware of the circumstances that they're under and the problems that are out there and the amount of money that's coming into these schools. And I think as that continues to happen, it's the efforts to create change are going to continue.
At the very least, it's raised awareness, right?
Right.
People know about it. Like, we're talking about it.
That's what I'm saying. And I think that, if this happens at a school that's not named Northwestern, I think it has a totally different pattern in terms of how people see it. If it's Nebraska or whatever, some big school where, football is a much bigger part of sort of the social fabric of the school rather than Northwestern, where people are sort of perceived as otherwise smart.
Right. And so schools like Nebraska, Kentucky, Tennessee, your state schools, they can still try. They would have to go to their state boards because they're governed by state labor laws. Private schools are governed by federal labor laws. But everyone I've talked to, most of the labor experts I've talked to seem to think that state boards would just follow the NLRB. Basically, the way I read it happening is the NLRB basically said, we don't want to be the ones to do this. This is going through courts. This is going through all kinds of other avenues. You all figure it out. We're not gonna be the one to do this.
All right, switching gears to Mr. Hughes. The NHL signed a deal with Adidas to do all of their apparel. Now, the quick explanation here for that is that Reebok is actually owned by Adidas, which had it like they're a whatever.
Yeah, Cousins is what this
or Cousins, right? But what does look? Apparel deals are always kind of weird, and like unless you're really paying attention to it, don't really matter to the average fan. But in this case, there's the possibility that it drastically changes the way the NHL looks. You know, what is the story behind this deal with Adidas and where the league goes from there?
Well, so Adidas is paying roughly double what Reebok paid on the last deal. It was a 10-year deal. But if you remember back to 2007 when Reebok took over, they pretty much changed everything. I mean, the uniform structure changed, but more importantly, to fans at least, I think like 6 teams completely overhauled their look, changed their logo, changed their uniforms, the Capitals included. And the style of the uniforms changed. A lot of teams have kind of reversed that. You see a lot of teams going back to their classic styles from the 70s and 80s. But, you know, it did change the way the NHL looked in a very drastic way. And basically Adidas, their argument is, hey, we're dropping double what Reebok paid. We want people to recognize our brand when they turn on games.
Are they going to put 3 stripes down every shoulder?
There's talk of that could happen.
No,
Wow.
I'm done. I'm 100% done with hockey. I'm trying to get into hockey. If you ruin the uniforms, I'm done.
The bigger question, though, are we going to see sponsor ads on the front of jerseys? Are the Red Wings going to ditch their logo?
I don't think it's going to go
for
soccer.
Joe's Crab Shack.
I don't think it's going to go soccer. They would go Amway. Amway's already their presenting sponsor.
Wow.
But no, I mean, I don't think it's going to go soccer where the sponsor logo takes over the main crest. But you know, a small ad on the chest. I think that's going to happen. And once that happens for one pro sports league in America,
it'll happen.
It's going to happen for all of them.
Now, do you think it's going to happen for all the teams at once, or will it happen for one team before
I think
another?
if the league says you can do this, every team would be dumb not to do it because it's a lot of revenue.
I guarantee.
Which we've already
the Capitals
seen.
will be out there.
We've already seen the NFL does it on practice uniforms.
Yeah, and the
right?
NHL does it on practice uniforms as well.
And basketball has openly talked about uniform ads.
Yeah, and the WNBA does it as well. I mean,
the WNBA
MLS
does like
it.
soccer.
Right,
they do
exactly.
full.
Do you think this is ultimately a good thing for the league in terms of apparel sales, which are a big part of the NHL? I mean, apparel sales are a major part of the NHL, and then down the line, I guess popularity, because the NHL, I mean, listen, the fact that they have to do this is still a little bush league, little low rent. You know what I'm saying? But it's still a major sport, and you're selling out ad space on jerseys. Not so sure about that.
I think it's fine personally. I mean, a lot of people talk about the sanctity of the jersey and all that nonsense, but I think it's fine. I think it's just another revenue stream for the league, and ultimately that works out because it'll raise the salary gap, and big market teams like the Capitals who have money can actually cheat the system a little bit more.
I wonder who the Cap sponsor would be. Now that I think about it,
probably a defense contractor,
or probably Verizon. Anyway, so fantasy football draft's coming up.
Yep.
You got a draft. I got a draft soon. You got a draft soon.
Yeah, I drafted on Sunday.
Yeah,
I'm already over it.
Right? You know
I'm already
saying?
ready to go.
Rule 1 of fantasy football: never talk about your fantasy football team. Okay, nobody cares, including the people
Especially
in your
don't
league.
tweet about your fantasy football team.
I know.
every week.
I'm playing this year for work for the first time in a long time, and I'm not super happy about it. But anyway, thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm Clinton. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit
isn't it?
everything.
Yeah, a
It's
little bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking, random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
Our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The program, folks. My name is Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post, filling in for Bill Press here on a Friday. Let's get right to it. On the line, we got Greg Howard from Deadspin. You can find him on Twitter at GregHoward88. Writes a lot about the footies, writes a lot about the world, writes a lot about race. His latest story is entitled The Fight for the Soul of Black Lives Matter. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
What's up, Clinton? How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. So this story was a bit of a primer. There's those of us who've been following, obviously, the movement, everything on Twitter that's happened. There's a lot of characters that are involved amongst all of the things that have happened on the street. It was a bit of a primer for anybody who sort of hadn't necessarily been paying attention to what was going on overall. Introduce me to some of the characters involved and what's happened in the last week in the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, man. So I started off because I was interested in a lot of things. I noticed that DeRay McKesson, who is he's a black civil rights activist. He's 29, really young. He's really active on social media. He's probably the most visible guy that we black people have right now, who is fighting against police brutality, specifically against black people. And I saw that essentially he was catching a lot of crap, I guess, from from a lot of different parties, and so it was really interesting. I started looking over the weekend, and I started off wanting to write about what comes with being a civil rights leader and the problems that you'll have in 2015 as opposed to 1960, or 65 or whatever. that took me to Black Lives Matter, the organization, which, it has, it's run by lots of women. Dream Hampton, the legendary hip hop writer, she is an active part of it. And, you could, it was weird. You kind of saw this, this fight and this battle over egos and stuff playing out in real time over social media in terms of, arguing over who got to speak. Why Bernie Sanders reached out to DeRay after Bernie Sanders was, after he was interrupted by a group of Black Lives Matter protesters. And so it was very interesting because DeRay, he is the face of Black Lives Matter's movement. Right? But that only came about because of an organization that was started by 3 women in Oakland after the death of Trayvon Martin, and it actually caught fire, and Black Lives Matter also became a rallying cry. So it's this muddy thing as who represents what, and that kind of got me into, I guess, writing the primer.
So there's a lot of people, right? You mentioned DeRay, you mentioned Dream Hampton, who are sort of publicly feuding about the credit given. But I guess my question to you is, having looked at this and considering the stuff you cover, do you think that it's possible, and again, you mentioned this in the story, all political movements have fractured leadership by sort of definition. That's a big part of what the struggle and the protest life is about. You never necessarily know who's really in charge. I mean, when you look back on the civil rights movement of the 60s, it's easy to sort of point to Dr. King now because of the way that history has panned out, but it's not like he was the only person doing anything, and it's not like he was the only person fighting for legitimacy. That said, do you think that as a result of these kind of beefs, these kind of beef is probably the wrong word, but these kinds of differences of opinion, that what is the Black Lives Matter movement, be it the cause or be it the organization, do you think that it's going to be lessened in terms of their ability to have an impact over time?
No. I mean, better not. Right?
Right.
No, I don't think so. I think that, well, first, I don't think it's that this is a unique thing or, something unique to, to freedom fighting or anything, right? I think if you get any large group of humans together, there's going to be beefing and there's going to be, if you get any successful group of people together, or you get a group of people together and they do something successful, it's who takes credit. I consider these growing pains. I think that because of social media and because Twitter is so public and that is now so often the platform of social, social activists, that we're seeing all this publicly. But I don't think there's anything particularly unique about this, which is why it's so interesting, right? Because we when we do talk about these people like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and even even Nelson Mandela, right? Probably Gandhi, they are just the most visible people out of thousands, millions of people who are all fighting these struggles. The struggle all has egos and ideas, right, and ambition, and that to me is the most interesting thing.
Right.
But no, I don't think it's going to stop anything. Not that I would probably say that cops are going to go along and keep on killing people
outside of the obvious threat.
What happens. Yeah.
We're talking to Deadspin's Greg Howard. You can find him on Twitter at GregHoward88. What do you think comes next in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and the presidential race? We've seen some interruptions. You've noted that in your story. Do you think these are likely to sort of increase? Do you think that there will be other candidates other than Bernie Sanders for whom this becomes maybe not an issue, but certainly a practice? And do you think that that's going to be a platform that will continue to be fruitful for the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Last week Jeb Bush was in Vegas, and he was, I believe, shouted off stage by a group of people saying Black Lives Matter. I don't know if that was a group of, I guess civilians saying Black Lives Matter, or those were actual chapter members. It's really, to me, it's really interesting. I have no problem with politicians who are politicking to get protested or get shouted off stage, because then they become something more than politics, right? They have to be held accountable. They have to actually tell us the plan to trying to roll back some of this white supremacy, in this case, police violence against people of color, against blacks. I expect it to continue. I expect people who want our vote, right, to have to earn it.
All right. Well, last thing I'll ask you, what do you got coming next on this?
On this particular subject,
or in general, whatever, Greg.
Well, I mean, I'm going camping in a few hours now, but when I get back, I want to see how how this continues and how this evolves. I mean, this is a really special time because you are seeing a movement, right? You're seeing a civil rights movement, and no one knows how it's going to end. I don't think it's going to end. I think that it is baked in the system, and it's important that police officers have the ability to kill black people. But what if I'm wrong? What if everyone's wrong? That's awesome. And so if I am wrong, right? If we do come to some hypothetical juncture where we can change policies on the books that make it harder and at least more frowned upon even for police officers in the state to steal black lives, then that's going to be fascinating, and I'm going to definitely report on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Glenn.
Appreciate
Always good
it,
talking to you, man.
All right, man. That's Greg Howard. He's a staff writer for Deadspin. You can find him on Twitter at GregHoward88. He's also a pretty good soccer player. Played in college. Check him out. We'll be back.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the program, folks. My name's Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill here. Coming down the home stretch here on a Friday, but we've got to talk about something pretty serious. Shaun King is a man who on Twitter is an activist. If you've seen a picture of Shaun King, you might think one or two things about him. His appearance outwardly is that of a fair-skinned person. Now, over the past week, his actual identity in terms of the specificity of his race was called into question by the conservative website Breitbart. They implied that he lied to Oprah Winfrey about his biracial status and implied that he was using his race erroneously and trying to mislead people in order to gain money, favors, and in particular, a scholarship to Morehouse College. As a result of that hunt on his identity, he was forced to reveal some deep family secrets about where he came from, what he was taught, and how he was brought up in his community. Now, the stories that were a part of that was the fact that he once was part of a very brutal beatdown that put him in the hospital, and he was basically treated like he was black his entire life. Mind you, his birth certificate says white on it. His father in his home was white. His mother was white as well. But the story that he revealed is one that many people do not seem to understand about misogyny in this country and what goes on. The bottom line is this. What your race is on your birth certificate is not necessarily an indicator of what your actual lineage is as a result of the stigmas and the shames that we force upon people for what they look like. Things like the one-drop rule have forced people in this country to hide in shame, be it through rape, be it through adultery, or be it through any sort of other scenario in which someone has a baby that is not all of a sudden the same race as the mother. It freaks people out. Shaun King was the product of a situation like that. His mother had a relationship with a light-skinned black man. He was raised in a white household in the South where black people were looked down upon. It was, to some degree, an open secret. And it was, to some other degree, nothing to be ashamed of, which is why Shaun King is somebody who should be admired for telling his family story and letting people know that who you are is nothing to be ashamed of, no matter what an entire community of people is willing to tell you. Understand that, folks. Race in this country is not just about what you look like. It has a lot to do with where you come from. It has a lot to do with who you know. This is not a Rachel Dolezal situation. Not even close. And if you think that, and if you're equating the two things, you have zero understanding of what is going on. Shaun King, at this point, in my mind, is as much of a hero as anyone else simply for telling that story. Never mind the work that he's done as an activist, which has been tremendous if you've been following the Black Lives Movement and the effort to end police brutality in this nation. Understand that fully before you make a judgment call on whether or not he should have been looking for his father or whether or not the questions about who he came from were, according to your Hoyle, up to snuff. Don't bother with any of that. You aren't him and you don't know where he came from. And until you are him, or until you've walked a mile in those shoes, or until you do, it's not up for you to pass judgment on. Peter, I want to know your thoughts on this.
That's strong stuff, man. I don't have a whole lot to
I mean, I'm just saying.
that. I don't know that I've ever felt so white in my entire life, man.
I'm just saying, it's a thing.
I can't. No, I mean, look, it's a fascinating story. It's a tough story to tell, and I hate that it came out the way that it did.
Yeah.
In this attack on him and saying that he somehow used this story for personal gain and lied about his race for personal gain. Yeah, it bugs me. But I think that what you just said there is the clearest explanation of the problem of the witch hunt on race. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is what it is. You know, I didn't mean that got longer than I wanted it to, but I mean, the point still stands. You know, what we identify as in this nation as human beings in terms of how we sort of go about with race and how we look at each other. Does it matter on one level? Absolutely. On another level, though, is it preventing us from really being able to humanize each other? Hell yeah. You know, I've seen some really, really bad insults about him saying, oh, well, if he didn't know who his father was, how could it be that he went 30 years without ever asking anybody? I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't. You know, I mean, that's not because if you don't have internal shame as much as you have to deal with the external violence, literally, that he had to deal with, then maybe that's just not a decision he made. I can respect that, you know, and it really bothers me that people seem to think that it's up to them to decide how somebody else should determine their identity, particularly if they're not lying. And that's the difference between the Rachel Dolezal situation and this one.
Yeah.
She was very much perpetrating something and putting people out of positions because she basically just liked doing it. Yeah. Not because it was a part of her identity that she did not want to reveal a basically dark family secret through in order to get on with life. It's a really sad story. And I yesterday when it first came out, I was angry, like full-blown angry. And, you know, as somebody that knows a fair amount of people that are interracial, you know, products of interracial couples, you feel for that because there are identity, I don't want to say issues, but it's a far different path to navigate than the sort of very simple one-track mind that a lot of people have the privilege of enjoying, be they white, be they black, be they anything else. When your situation is blended, and by the by, it never ceases to amaze me that people in this country are shocked that black people and white people are having babies together. It's like some big surprise every single time somebody comes out it's mixed. It's like, oh my God, what? Yeah. And you're like, yeah, hello, this is what happens when people are in the same room together in the same country, either forcibly or not. It should never be a surprise to you when people do things like that. But again, I personally, and I say this is me, I believe Shaun King. I've always believed Shaun King, and I think the guy's heart is in the right place, and it's really, really unfortunate that his entire life had to get ripped apart by one jerk at a website who decided to try to make it all about him. When we get back, we're going to wrap things up, talk about what we're going to do this weekend. My name is Clinton Yates. I'm filling in for Bill Press. I write for the Washington Post. It's Friday. Goodbye.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
and to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
What?
It's obvious you're buzzed and driving. Getting
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, wrapping things up here on the program. My name's Clinton Yates, filling in for Bill. It's been another great day. I just want to say quickly, if I got all lathered up and I referred to Shaun King as Shaun White, I apologize. That happens every once in a while. You know, Shaun King is a different guy than Shaun White, but nobody told me that. I just thought about it in my mind, so that may or may not have happened. Let's review. We had Evan McMorris-Santoro, the White House reporter from Buzzfeed, on. You can check him out on Twitter at Evan McSand. He talked about Bernie Sanders and what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and his campaign. We had national editor for Politico magazine, Michael Hirsh, on. You can find him on Twitter at Michael P. Hirsh. He talked about Jimmy Carter and what's going on with him now that he revealed that he is sick and he is 90 years old. We, of course, had Travis Waldron and Travis Hughes. Travis Waldron is a sports reporter for, Huffington Post. Travis Hughes is the editor at NHL editor at SB Nation. You can find them on Twitter at Travis_Waldron and at TravisSBN. And we just had Greg Howard of Deadspin on to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. At Greg Howard 88 is where you can find him. So it's time to play. What are you doing this weekend, Peter?
I'm gonna go camping here in a little bit. I actually am gonna go off the grid. I'm gonna take a couple days off. I'm gonna be out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going out to Shenandoah.
Nice.
Gonna just unplug.
All right, Jamie. What about you?
Today's the last day at my day job.
Okay.
I've been there 3.5 years. It's an exciting, monumental occasion. So I'm going to go out tonight and have a little going away party.
Libations. All right. Well, I will be going to the National Press Club because I am one of the newest members there. Off the Record. You want to know? It's the name. Reliable Source is the name of the bar. You want to know something cool about that place? After Prohibition, guess which liquor license they got in D.C.? Number 1. There's a sign on the wall that says that there, and it's pretty dope. I'll be there tonight. For Peter, for Jamie, for Ray, for Sip. I want to thank everybody for letting me fill in, and most importantly, I want to thank Bill. My name's Clinton Yates. I write for the Washington Post. You will see more of me sometime soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.